Alright, we've got a couple well, not boxes, packages. One box to mail things first. Be careful with that one. So this, of course, is not anime, but, you know, you do have my vitamin D. I mean, maybe need is the wrong word, but it seems like a good idea. We got this from Right Stuff. Let's see. I say Right Stuff, but it's actually Crunchyroll now. I keep forgetting. Alright. We'll dig into that a little bit because we've got one more package. And now we've got everything. So first we've got Bungo Stray Dogs Season 4, which I haven't been counting the number of seasons I have on DVD Blu-ray, so I kind of assume I have this or don't have this yet. Regions A and B. Let's sorry. I want to check that audio because there's English, French, and Japanese. So people who've been enjoying the random German dubs, unfortunately, don't get a random German dub on this one. And I don't remember the dubs for previous releases, so maybe that's expected. Alright. There are 50 episodes of this. And I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at with this image. It's a little bit better. Although I'll admit I'm still not processing what I'm seeing, but hopefully y'all know what it is. Those of you familiar with the show and saying, oh yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Well, go to the top. This one would actually be 4K release of Gurran Lagann movies, which I guess means I technically can't watch these. This is some very unusual wrapping. Hopefully that was careful enough. Gurran Lagann, the movie, although that's two movies. It's Childhood's End and The Lights in the Sky Are Stars. I wonder if there's any interesting information. I did see so discs 1 and 2 have English with on-screen text. Okay, this makes me, I thought this might be the case, but I think this means it's actually dubbed. I didn't think there was a dub for the movie, so I'm going to have to take a look at past releases just to make sure. English audio version. Interesting. And then there are two more discs here. These would be the Japanese audio versions. English subtitles. And I didn't see anything on the back that made me think it was region free, but I guess I don't know what Ultra 4K even is. I'm not seeing anything that says it's region A either. Well, for those of you who haven't seen it, if you've only ever watched the original series, definitely give the movies a shot. I would say that there's definitely some things that were better executed about the show itself, but the movies are special in their own way. And I don't think I can elaborate beyond that. Vinland Saga, Season 2, Part 1. Just on Blu-ray. Looking at the back, I see regions A and B and audio. Just English and Japanese. Oh, different underneath the slipcover. For a while there, I almost thought it looked vaguely Attack on Titan-esque. So we already looked at the back, so we can just take a peek at the discs, which, you know, are basically the same as the guy on that cover. It's okay. But I otherwise don't know much about the show itself. Next up, we have In Another World with My Smartphone, Season 2. I'm trying to think if I can remember anything specifically about the second season. Maybe bits and pieces. Regions A and B. English and Japanese dubs. But, you know, amusing show. Okay. Oh, this is Blu-ray plus DVD. I was thinking it felt a little heavy for just Blu-ray only. I didn't process 1 and 2. So what are these first two the discs of? Regions A and B, so these are the Blu-ray. Yeah, it says Blu-ray right there. So we have Blu-rays discs 1 and 2. Then this would be DVDs discs 1 and 2. And probably they're releasing this because this first season of this show had DVD and Blu-ray releases. So, fair enough. And then last but not least, we have Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.11. Which, honestly, I'm not quite sure what in the rebuild stuff this means. But this one was a... If I already had this before, I don't remember if I did. This one is a steelbook. What can we tell from the back? First of all, I guess this is G-Kids and not Crunchy Munchy. Audio. Okay, English and Japanese. I think that's a region A, although the shape feels a little strange. Oh well, good to know. Now let's take a look. Thought there might be one disc loose. Guess it looks okay. So then I guess before we put that back, what is this disc? The specials disc. And this one would be the main feature. Is that what that says? It doesn't say. But, you know, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.11 Steelbook. Alright, well, here's this week's physical anime collection update. Alright. We've got a big long list of stuff, special out on new series airing, so let's try to go down this list real quick. Hope I can remember everything I wanted to talk about. First of all, the stuff I watched with my Friday friend would be episode 60 dubbed of Reincarnated as Slime, so that's season 3 dub episode 60, and good enough stuff. Which episode was this one? It was some of that stuff where it's finally just sort of doing stuff and no longer just, oh, they're in a big meeting room. I mean, Rimuru is still meeting with people, but it's, you know, doing stuff and it's nice. Let's see, there's Jobless Reincarnation, Season 2, Episode 22. I'd say actually this was a really good episode to watch because, you know, there was also the end of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, and they're both kind of interestingly comparable because they both have really good action pieces in them. But while I feel like on a pure action level the Jujutsu Kaisen stuff is great, I think the Jobless Reincarnation one is a bit more notable, probably because Okay, so like, yeah, the other thing is we watched Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, episodes 45 through 47, which finishes Season 2, and it's an okay ending. I think the main problem is that while there's a lot of action in Jujutsu Kaisen, there's... I guess something about that just sort of like... It feels like the action is almost just sort of happening. Fortunately, it's not as bad as some other shows, which is where I've complained about it before, where there doesn't seem to be any meaning. There seems to be meaning to Jujutsu Kaisen. I think it just kind of... it could use more story relevance, I guess. Character relevance or something. Like, the stuff that happened is sort of story relevant, but it also feels like, I guess, a little detached from like any sort of theming or goal. It just sort of is flowing from big fight item to big fight item, sort of. And it's not bad. It just makes it kind of hard to tell how I should be feeling about it from a storytelling perspective, I guess. Whereas Jujutsu Kaisen... No, sorry. Whereas Jobless Reincarnation Season 2, Episode 22... I feel like you just kind of feel it more. You kind of know why it's there, why it's happening, sort of stuff. And maybe not even from a, oh, there's a specific check box on a checklist. You just sort of feel the action that's happening is relevant to the story. Whereas Jujutsu Kaisen, I couldn't help but tell, is it? I'm not really quite sure. It ended the series in an interesting way with something I wasn't quite sure if I was going to care about. I kind of figured out it's going to do something a little unexpected or weird. Sorry, these hiccups. But I wasn't quite sure what that would mean, because you can kind of tell when it's getting close to something. It's like, okay, it doesn't seem like they're going to suddenly win and then have an entire episode to, you know, reflect on the things that happened, because this is getting, you know, it's setting itself up for something very clearly different, and I still don't know exactly what that means. Part of the problem is that, you know, it kind of threw a lot of information at you really fast at the end there. Nothing that's just like bad, but just sort of like, yeah, I guess it missed the mark a little bit. But, you know, overall, it was a nice second season, give or take the stretching out of the combat, which is interesting because Demon Slayer's out there, and the English dub for that has started, and I'm probably going to eventually watch that with my Friday friend, but that'll probably be in like 6 weeks, if not longer. But the point is, the battles in that one definitely feel stretched out in general, but they also feel more story relevant, so it's kind of hard to tell what to feel about those. But, you know, overall, Jobless Reincarnation Season 2, Episode 22, fun episode. Did I say the right thing? Jobless Reincarnation Season 2, Episode 22, fun. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, it's a nice season. I think people who are really into this show probably enjoyed it a lot because it did good stuff, maybe? Let's see. Tuesday, Tasuketsu, Fate of the Majority, Episode 1. A strange show, I guess. Probably... I mean, this one is... What did they call it? Did they call this one kind of drama, death game sort of stuff? And I guess I'm not necessarily an expert on those, but it felt like it's just an interesting premise, an interesting setup. That's right. And the first episode... I'd say the first episode did a good job of just like staying interesting enough, and then I guess throwing in an interesting stinger to the first episode that definitely makes you want to watch the next episode, now that I think about it. So, yeah, a good first episode, I would say. Strongest Magician in the Demon Lord's Army was a human, Episode 2. I guess it was okay. Do I have any strong feelings about it? Sort of... I guess a little bit worried that they're making the opposition to our main character a little conveniently dumb. It's sort of like, okay, you just set something up where... because of your corrupt dumbness, you might be enhancing your opponent, sort of thing. I don't know. So sometimes you have people that a show just creates that's just so corrupt that's just like, how did someone like this even manage to hold the position? I guess it's a little bit reality breaking in certain ways, and it's one of those things that usually I guess you try to ignore, for the sake of trying to enjoy it. And I'm trying to think if anything else happened in this. I guess a little bit of that, a little bit of that, which it was okay, maybe not super exciting per se. I don't know. Also, still haven't caught up on mysterious disappearances, so there's a chance it's going to start floating down into the things I might get back to eventually finish territory. Especially since Tuesday, Wednesday, I think Wednesday, there may be a couple new series starting. Although I think the one on Wednesday that's starting this coming Wednesday is the second season of I forget the name of that one. If I scrolled up a little bit, I could probably see the name because I didn't watch any more episodes of that. But that second season of that one show, and there's a handful more shows going to start. So I'm curious about stuff. Thursday, okay, that's when a lot of the big blob of stuff that I was curious about started. Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells. Episode 1. And I had to be careful because there were a lot of episodes 1+2s, and I think I got all the episode 2s as well, but, I think Failure Frame episode 1, I think it's a good enough start. If there's any issue with it, I think it roughly establishes, like, I guess, the premise on top of the basic setup, but not enough for me to really know what kind of show it's going to be, and wanting to see more before I say for sure whether or not it's definitely good or anything like that. So, it doesn't feel like the best episode 1 to judge. It seems like a good enough setup with an interesting enough twist and a little bit of, okay, now I'm angry at these characters and I want to see the main character get his revenge. So good in that regard, but I guess we'll have to see where it goes from there. I Parry Everything, episode 1. I think it's a good enough setup, although I sometimes have to wonder what its definition of parry might be. I guess because the character does some training on his own, he's able to parry 100 wooden swords or something like that early in his training. And it's like, I don't know that I feel like I know what that means in that context, but it does mean that when they actually do have the big confrontation in there, it's fine enough. And I think it's a fun setup of, okay, things happened that were a little unexpected. It looked like it wasn't going to begin with a backstory first episode, but it did have one, and I thought it was actually surprisingly good. At first I wasn't quite sure. It's like, oh, I want to see the cool stuff, and usually a show like this may risk accidentally having a backstory that's a little meh, and so you're just waiting for the cool action to happen, but I thought this one was pretty good in that regard. So, fun enough first episode. Dates with My Stepsister. So, I did mention that there's a lot of romancy sort of stuff this time, and I'll probably give some of them a shot. And I tried Days with My Stepsister, and I think so far I'm okay with it. The thing I like about it is it's not too romantic with its romance. If it even counts as romance, I haven't taken a look, but I'm fairly certain it's supposed to. And the thing about it that's kind of nice and pleasant is it's more about a situation that in a lot of shows just leads to a quick romance hijinks sort of stuff. But this one, it feels almost more like people just dealing with a situation. So a very slice of life that just kind of has a good tone to it, I guess. And I'm just trying to think if there's a better word I can use to describe the tone, but I don't know. I was kind of pleased with it. Senpai is an Otokonoko, episode 1. I thought it was a good first episode. I'm not sure what to think overall. So, the thing I liked about it is, again, it's not too romantic of romance. Our main character is kind of interesting because he's kind of indifferent and doing his own thing. And you just have other characters that are kind of interacting with him because of that, and there's a romantic angle to it, but our main character has a refreshing thing where it's just like, it's not really about, oh, what does he feel about romance? He's almost feeling, can I feel about romance? He's really detached from that, and the characters they build around him are interesting enough. If there's any complaint I have about the show, it's that I wish I hadn't read the reviews. Not because... Okay, so the only review I read... I guess I read a couple. And it sounded like people were just really desperate to sell the show. And probably most worrisome being that they were saying that it was being mass downvoted by transphobes. And there are two things I don't like about that, and they're from completely different perspectives, and both of them just make it... I don't know if I want to watch this. And the problem with that is, if it's true, it's something they're just like, fucking people. But the other problem, the other side of that problem is, how many times do we keep hearing from people making claims like that, for which that's not actually the case? And now at this point, they've kind of soiled it for me, because now I have to watch it, knowing somebody said that and having to think, okay, well, am I liking this or am I not liking this? Do other people like this? Do they not like it? Because, especially since there's not really anything trans about it. Like, if there's trans people that are championing this as trans, then, well, that would just be another mistake of the trans movement, I guess. I don't know if it makes sense, because you hear about these loud dumbasses who are so pushing an agenda that it's like, okay, you're now ignoring reality. Come back to reality. And reality would be like, I don't know, they like to champion certain animals as being trans when they're not. I think hyena is a good example of that. It's like, no, that's not even what you're supposed to mean. Talk about this anime. The guy doesn't, I think I'm a girl, and so I'm a girl who likes other girls, or I'm a girl who likes other guys, or anything like that. He just simply wants to do his own thing. And it doesn't look like the show's about, let's pressure him into remembering he's a guy, or let's pressure him into transitioning completely into a girl, or anything like that. He just is. And that's what's nice. Now, I guess maybe it's possible later that becomes a thing, but I don't know. This is why I hated the review. It's making me overthink it too much. And I thought it was strange when I was looking at a seventh person saying, is this actually supposed to be a guy? Let's see. Pseudo Harem episode 1. I watched it, and it's entertaining, but I don't think I'll continue watching it. Nothing about season... There's nothing wrong with episode 1. I guess if there's anything wrong with... or anything about episode 1 that made me say, I don't need to. First of all, it's a big long list of stuff, and then second is... the premise sounded, I guess, like an interesting idea, but one which I'm like, I don't know if it'll be enough to tickle my interest, because it might just be enough of a romance show on its own that's lower priority. But I did want to give it a shot, and I think it's executed fine enough. If anything, I'm just not really quite sure where it would go from episode 1, which is why, it feels much more romancy than the other romance shows that I was looking at. So, I don't know. Maybe I could be convinced otherwise. Because I also I did not watch the one about that girl who hides her thoughts in Russian, because that just sounded like an interesting concept, but not like I'm not sure where it would go with this sort of concept. And it might not go where I think it's going, but I do think that one sounds like pretty straightforward romance with an interesting twist, which Pseudo Harem I think ended up being as well. But Nothing bad, just not my own preferences. Friday, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, season 3, episode 62. What happened in this episode? Okay, that. Just more stuff that's been building up, I guess. Yeah, the previous episode was introducing characters. This one's doing more interesting build-up, so I'm kind of interested to see what's gonna do after this. But I'm not sure what else I have to say. Misfit of Demon King Academy, season 2, episode 23. I guess some interesting thoughts put forward, but I don't know. The show continues to be perplexing, amusing. Just seeing the main character, just kind of do his own thing is kind of fun, but I don't know. I guess I'm curious how it's going to end. Quality Assurance in Another World, episode 1. It was a pretty fresh idea, I think. I wasn't quite sure what it was supposed to be, but after finishing the complete first episode, I'm like, oh, I see. That's an interestingly different approach. Let's see where it goes from there. I think it's mostly a promising setup. We just have to see what it's going to do. Dungeon People, episode 1. Looked like I guess just a fun show. Let's see, you got that. So amusing, lighthearted. It's really not trying to be that complicated a show, and I don't think it looks like you would expect it otherwise. So overall, it was just nice. My Wife Has No Emotion, episode 2. I was gonna say the main problem with it is, I guess it's not really playing that line of what if you're not sure about the technology, if the technology's moved far enough ahead, I guess. Yeah, no, I think it's at this point it's getting to be more straight up romance. So probably, since I've given it a second episode watch, I'll give episode 3 a watch. That standard 3 episode try. But we'll see how I feel after that. It was a cute episode. But I think trying to be a little too cute, a little too, oh yes, this is pretty much just a romance and not about, I don't know. Next up, Dahlia and Bloom crafting a fresh start with magic tools, episode 1. What happened in this episode? I guess it's an entertaining enough setup. A very touching episode, father-daughter doing stuff together moment. Or maybe episode. But beyond that, it's hard to say. So it may be a bit of a weak first episode because it's a good backstory to our main character, but it doesn't really tell us what kind of show it's planning to be. That's the responsibility of the next episode, I guess. Let's see. Nobody's Way Up to an Exploration Hero, episodes 1 through 2. I guess just kind of an amusing, sort of simple show. I'm not sure if the things it's doing feel like they are consistent in the in-game world or not. It's really hard to say. It just sort of is doing its thing, and it's entertaining enough, but I guess we'll have to see the full extent of everything it's going to do. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, episode 1. Not as interesting a first episode as I thought it might be, because it sounded like the premise was just really interesting, and I wanted to, I guess, see if it was going to live up to some of that excitement. And I think the first episode did some decent enough setup, but the main problem is a lot of the characters are kind of annoying. Our main character is kind of an annoying spoiled child for too much of the first episode, I think. The humans that interact are kind of like unsupervised kids in a mall who are putting their sticky hands all over your merchandise. Sort of annoying. It's like they know they're not supposed to be there. Oh, they can't go back. Well, doesn't change the fact that they're they were kind of being, like, not entirely that, but kind of being little shits about some of their stuff. Again, nothing too egregious, but it was just a thing, and nothing to make you hate the characters, but maybe it's hard to say, okay, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the characters, what they do in the next episode, because their characterisms are a little bit but we'll see what episode 2 brings. Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, episode 1. I thought that was actually pretty good. I got the impression that it maybe wasn't necessarily romance. Maybe there was a pseudo-romance element to it, and that does appear to be the case. But it's pretty much our two main characters with both very interesting mannerisms. They're just kind of entertaining to watch. And we kind of get a little bit of insight into what the show means by how to become ordinary, because the presumption is they're not ordinary, and there's some things about them that are eccentric, but not something to stay out of the ordinary. But I think we got little hints of it, and just the way it was all executed was fun. So, good fun first episode. Speaking of, The Elusive Samurai was one that I had originally read the synopsis for, and I was thinking, I'm not sure if I am going to watch it, but it was rated highly enough, it was there. I'm just like, I'm curious, I'm going to put it on, and I'm glad I did, because the description didn't give as clear a picture as just watching the first episode was, and what can I say? It was actually just a fun first episode. Our main character is basically the young lord of the Shogun? I think so. Son of a samurai, etc., etc. But he's evading his teachers because he doesn't want to do, I guess, bow and arrow teaching. And, a lot of the first episode is him just kind of running away, but it's fun. It's fun the way it's animated, the way all the characters act. You just kind of like it, and you understand that there's an element of this that's not just, he's evading responsibility. He's really fucking good at evading responsibility to a very amusing way. He feels clever. And the way it ends is definitely elaborating how that's actually the main thing about him and why this show does a good job of convincing you that it's interesting. So, really damn good first episode, I thought. It completely turned me around in terms of, maybe I'll give it a watch anyways, and I really enjoyed it. And then we go to Plus Sized Elf, episode 1. If there's any reason I'll keep watching this one, it's just because the episodes are only half the length. We'll have to see how I feel. It's not bad, but it's definitely not something that's trying to be good. It's something that's definitely trying to be a little bit perverted. I think that's the clean way to put it. Definitely saw a lot more titty than I was expecting. I just expected it to just be a sort of silly show, and it turns out it is, but it's a sort of silly show that wants to show off curves, if you know what I mean. So, fine enough. If it was just that, I think it would be at more risk, but being only 10-minute long episodes basically means, I don't know, it's a good thing to watch if it's late at night. I'm like, I haven't eaten my ice cream yet. You know what? I'll just put Plus Sized Elf on and watch that. And content is fun enough. I wasn't quite sure exactly what it would be, but it's basically our titular elf girl. She came to our world to a thing and discovered, elves are vegetarians, I guess. And she discovered that we have something magical called French fries, which, for all intents and purposes, may as well be the food of the gods to her medieval fantasy starved palate. It's like, we don't have that much salt. Boiling things in oil is out of the question. We don't have potatoes, things like that. It's just like, who can't help but respect, okay, yeah, if there was anything I would want to get fat on, it would definitely be French fries. Motherfucking French fries. So, I think that's just kind of a funny thought. But I digress. Continuing on, A Journey Through Another World, Raising Kids While Adventuring, episodes 1 and 2. I thought this would be a little bit more adventurous than it is. So overall, it's just kind of okay. But I think it's okay like other... Hey, actually, yeah, that one aired on Sundays as well. Fluffy Paradise. In some degrees, it reminds me of that one. I think probably the main way would be that, you know, like Fluffy Paradise doesn't feel like it gets animals right. But I guess you kind of just watch it because, like, who cares? They're there. It's kind of entertaining. This one sort of feels like Raising Kids is sort of put there. I'm not sure if it necessarily gets kids. And I know one of the tricky things about this is they're not just kids, because it's implied that the gods have some sort of plan related to them, and they're already very strong at a ripe young age of 5, I think they said. I'm trying to think if I know what 5-year-olds look like, and if that behaviorism also makes sense for them, or if they took something that's a bit younger than 5 and presented it as 5. It's definitely convenient when a show's like, let's have a character that's conveniently past that age of, I guess, the hard part. Not that there aren't other hard parts, but the part where, oh yes, well, they don't have to worry about changing diapers. They don't have to worry about being woken up 5 times every night for the first half a year or something like that. You know, they just get, oh, kids are cute, and just the, oh, kids are cute stuff. And these are really well-acting kids, so I guess they get that. So I think there's an appeal more similar to Fluffy Paradise than a lot of other stuff, which surprised me. I thought it might not be. But with PVs, it's really hard to tell sometimes. But, you know, it's good enough. My Dear Friend Nokotan. It was pretty funny, actually. It at least got quite a number of chuckles out of me from the first episode. Lots of little jokes that does all over the place. You dear. Some visual gags. It has a lot of tone gag and pacing gag where it's not like, oh, well, we're following a specific beat. It's kind of doing clunky things for the intended reason of being clunky to be funny. And I think it works out. I'll give it more to watch, I think. Just to see if it continues being funny, because I also don't feel like it's something with so outrageously hilarious a premise that I guess it might blow through it too fast. So yeah, I'll give it more shot. Wistoria, Wand and Sword, episode 1. This is yet another, our main character is going to magic school in a system where he has no magic. I would say this is maybe the third one I know of, which with what is that one there? Black Clover being probably a good shonen example. But we also had the recently aired Mashal. Yeah, I guess it should be that because it's like Mash and Muscle or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to watch this one. It was rated highly, but I'm like, I'll finally give it a chance. And it's... So I haven't watched Black Clover, so I can't really compare it to that. But it's a fine enough first episode. I think if there's any problem, it's hard to tell where it's going to go from there. But it's promising enough a first episode that's definitely worth an additional watch. A good battle in the first episode, I would say. One of those ones where you're like, oh yes, this is a good first episode setup battle sort of thing, where you understand the main character's place in the world and some of the relevance and things like that. So, good enough start. And then, let's see, we had the things that aired today. There was the Osan Newbie Adventurer, episode 2. I'd say it was an okay episode. The main problem with it is... I guess it felt like it's doing its fundamental premise a little slow, I guess. Like, I would have wanted to watch episode 3 because it felt like episode 2 spent a lot of time setting up what was going to happen in episode 3. And I think before I mentioned I wasn't quite sure what to make of the party that trained him, and maybe that's because this episode was setting things up so that we would get a chance to kind of meet them and understand them more, which kind of makes it a bit of a distraction from the main story, but not so big of a distraction that it's bad. Just, I don't know, I guess it's enough of a distraction. It feels like it's affected the pacing of the second episode, I guess. Basically, whatever is about to happen in episode 3, I probably would have wanted to happen in episode 2. But I digress. Maybe episode 3 will do even more and more of that. We'll just see. We'll give it the 3-episode watch. And then, last but not least on the stuff I've watched, Spice and Wolf, Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf, episode 15. Which I guess is good stuff. I don't remember if this stuff happened in the actual season 2. I should probably flip through it to find out. Because otherwise, it's, again, entertaining enough stuff. Spice and Wolf, it's fun to see the characters interact. I guess there wasn't as much interaction between Lawrence and Holo. But we did get to hear interesting things. Not sure if I would say more than that, but, interesting enough. Alright, so what about other stuff? I did mention last week that Tower of God second season was on the radar, and it still is, but I don't know, I guess I just didn't feel like firing it up. Maybe because I already had a big load of stuff because it aired over this weekend with a whole bunch of other stuff that aired. Maybe also because I don't remember the first season enough to be too excited for second season. Not sure. There's also the first episode of a new Monogatari. That's Bakemonogatari and not like Monogatari love story or anything like that. So there's a new episode of that, and that one I would have been excited for if I knew for a fact what I had successfully previously watched. But I don't remember. I think I might have missed a season or two of something. So I guess I have some more figuring out to do of that one. Otherwise, there's other stuff potentially airing. Let's see. I know Head Start at Birth was on my radar, but now I realize that was like 5 episodes per thing. Nobody's going to be streaming that yet because it's probably most worthwhile to stream it when they have most of it or all of it out. So that's fair. And yeah, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more series that are to start that I'm curious about. And again, my Friday friend is out of town for like a couple of weeks. Then when he's back, we have One Piece to watch, and then he's out of town for a couple of weeks. So in like 6 weeks, I'll probably start catching up on something else. I'm not sure if it'll be My Hero Academia Season 7 or Demon Slayer. He'll be wanting to catch up on Slime. That'll be the highest priority. And then probably finishing Jobless Reincarnation Season 2. And all of that is fine. But, yeah, we got a couple other things. But otherwise, I'm curious about the Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant. Used to be arch enemies, no longer allowed in another world. Again, potentially Our Last Crusade or The Rise of a New World Season 2. Depends on if I finish Season 1 in time. I mean, maybe I'll still watch it even if Season 1 ends at an interesting enough place. Similar to what I did for Irregular Magic High Season 3. Let's see, Bye Bye Earth is on my radar, and then Why Does Nobody Remember Me in This World? A couple isekais. Did I say 5 things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that is 5 things. Yeah, I forget what some of them are, but they're on my radar. Otherwise, if y'all have other things you're curious about, feel free to mention my way, because otherwise, I think even though I was on PTO this past week, I did not finish Starbound. I guess I sort of felt like there were certain things I wanted to do. I wanted to complete the collection of all the pet monster collections. So I did that. I spent a lot of time as a peacekeeper to get the rare ones, and then I'm like, okay, now I have 4 more to get that are the regular versions of stuff, and I went and got those. And then I'm like, alright, now it's Sunday, how much story can I get through? And I'm not going to try to push it too hard, and I didn't push it too hard. So, the story stuff is okay. I guess I progressed through 2 levels of it. Maybe I did one on Saturday and one on Sunday or something like that. But it's okay enough, I guess. I would say that probably people didn't want to play Starbound for its story. But it's okay enough, I guess. We're just seeing things happen and going through them, and I guess I'm trying stuff. But beyond that, Dead by Daylight, I think I finished all of the... Yeah, I finished the event. I think I might have done that before I even aired yesterday's video. If I didn't, I finished it. I haven't played much more. Lara Croft comes out next week, so I should do some preparations related to that, but maybe nothing too intense. I guess the main problem is I've had more of a chance to play the Lethal Company beta, which has now gone live, and I think there may still be a beta which has got more additional fixes, but I don't know. I think me and my group, we may have played once and kind of had our giggles, but we played again saying, okay, now how can we handle this? And I think we're pretty unanimous that the Kidnapper Fox is too much. And by too much, I mean like Zeekers needs to be careful. He might kill his own game too much. I guess what I mean by that is, so if you add an enemy to it, if you're especially adding an outdoor enemy, I think the right thing to do in the game is you add an outdoor enemy, or you just an outdoor enemy that affects the way you move about. Problem with the Kidnapper Fox is that it's not really an adjustment in, oh, here's how you're going to be handling outside differently, but here's how your whole team needs to, and it's a little too in your face, making it where you feel like you can't not handle it, and at the same time requiring you to purchase and carry specific things in order to be able to handle it. And that's without talking about the bugs that just make unfair things happen. It's the sort of thing that's like, okay, at this point, the Kidnapper Fox feels like instead of making you adjust your behavior, it's making you ignore the actual main part of the game in order to focus only on the Kidnapper Fox. Both its counterplays, and it's completely distracting from the main idea of the game. The other entity that was added, you know, people from my group haven't encountered yet, so I'm not saying its name. You know, that one seems fine. That's a thing with its own behavior, an expected amount of lethality, something that's maybe, once you understand what it is, it's only really dangerous if you get caught in situations. And that's been the thing about a lot of the impossible situations in Lethal Company. They're entertaining enough because they're not common. They don't happen all the time. And usually they require a combination of comedies to happen. And this is just a singular enemy that's causing all this pain. And that's the real problem. So I think it would be kind of like if the spike trap was spawning on top of every fire escape and main exit for like 90% of the moons. At that point, Lethal Company, and I'm talking about Lethal Company as a horror game. At that point, Lethal Company as a horror game, even if it's a comedic horror, that sometimes causes real fear, and that's one thing people like about it. Well, at that point, the horror element kind of goes away, and it becomes frustrating, basically. And I can think of other games that were ruined because I liked a lot of the ideas and setup, but the actual gameplay of the horror part, instead of being actually scary, just kind of encouraged you to be frustrated. Silent Hill Shattered Memories comes to mind specifically there. Like, I really liked the idea. It's like, okay, yeah, it's fun enough. And it was playful enough with what it did as well. But it had the problem of the parts that should have been the most scary. The game did not do a good enough job of introducing me to the mechanics in the way I would have thought it intended for me to use them. It kept driving me towards, okay, well, why would I bother hiding? Because it's not entirely clear to me when's a good time to hide. And every time I do, instead I just get strangled by these stupid things. Maybe I should be running. Well, I can't sit down and navigate. There's no breathing room. That's a big problem with the Kidnapper Fox. It's removing breathing room as well. It's frustrating. It's sad. Our group is already committed to playing something else while we see if the Kidnapper Fox situation calms down, although I don't think we're very hopeful on that. We're instead more hopeful that we're going to mod it out because it's too much. It prevents us from actually just having fun playing the game. And having fun playing the game doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we brought back a good quota or anything like that. If we get a really shitty quota, or maybe if we don't add anything to the quota, but you know, we all tried something that we knew was risky and just got slowly picked off, and we're like, oh yeah, well, at least we tried. It doesn't feel like with the Kidnapper Fox we can even try. So we're gonna wait to see if anything happens there, if the mod stuff's fine. I think our modder is currently moving, so he probably doesn't have the time to do that, but I don't know, it's all stuff. Beyond that, I guess I'm finally falling behind on Pokemon. I just don't have the energy to try to get any more of these 7-star guys. I probably can do it easily, but at this point, I've skipped 2 of them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just exhausted. Do I have anything else to talk about? Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, an interesting anime season. It's nice how no one season is the same. You definitely have them bunching up different kinds of episodes in different places. Fun stuff. Alright, y'all, have a nice week.